Thank you, that's carried. And so now we're up to bringing, as I said, bringing number 15 forward, Community Social Housing Update Report. And I see Kate's here as well from OCHT, so it's good to see you again. And Lisa, isn't it? Is that right?
Yes,
yeah.
Correct.
Thank you, welcome.
Right.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Morena, you all have a copy of the update report, but first of all I would like to start with acknowledging our previous presenters in the room, and as we've already heard, the fantastic work that they do in that space. As we've heard, homelessness and housing happens on multiple levels, and it's not exclusive. It can happen anywhere at any time. But as we've heard, there is multiple agencies and organisations that are out there doing their best in that space. And in Otatahi Christchurch, we do have a good network. And as we've heard, there's organisations that specialise in specific areas, but we do collaborate, whether it be directly or indirectly, across that space, so that we are communicating and trying to address this issue as it comes to hand. And there is a lot of good work happening in that sector. So yeah, thank you again to those people. Just also they touched on with the homelessness is that Jill, myself and John Slaughter and Bruce have met with MHUD. They had reached out to us and they are doing a national sort of investigation into homelessness, and they were wanting to know what we were doing and what it looked like in our area. So we have reported that back to them. They are doing that nationally. When we get any results or any feedback from that, we can, definitely share that back. But we're not too sure when that will be. But just that we have spoken to them about that. So moving on, Community Housing Update Report. So this is for the first 6 months of this financial year. As always, we're pleased to be able to come and report what we're doing in that space. There is a lot of good work. One thing I would like, a couple of things I just want to point out. On page 3 of the report, you will notice that we now have in there affordable rental tenancies. This is new. This is a new revenue stream. IRR was capped in July 2025, so OCHT had to start their own wait list as well. So they now offer rentals in the affordable rental space, which is less than market rent, and this will vary according to unit and suburb, but Kate could probably elaborate more on that if need be. What this does highlight, as has been mentioned with governments and things like that, this does highlight a risk for us, that with the change in government policies, it does make us look at the way that we're getting that revenue and income coming in that we can then put back into our housing portfolio. So that's kind of, I just really wanted to point that out in that space, because we do want this portfolio to remain rates neutral, so we do need to continue to look at that revenue stream and how we do that. OCHT, as we all know, they continue to provide an excellent service for council in our portfolio, and that's both in maintaining and improving our properties, which also these properties are people's homes, and OCHT are very good at making people feel that that is their home and that's where they live. This shows not only in this report, but it also shows in the levels of service that we need to meet, and in the reporting of those that we're so far this financial year we are meeting or exceeding those levels of service with the help of OCHT. Pages 10 and 11 of the report, which is the tenant information section, you will notice that the highest representation of people being housed is still in that 55 to 64 age bracket, and then the next highest in that 65 to 74. So we're still housing that older the older bracket there. Tenant satisfaction levels also continue to remain consistent, and condition of home in that tenant satisfaction exceeds our level of service also, which is another great stat that we have. Kate, I'll hand over to you now. If there's anything else you want to add to that.
I'll just add for councillors, and especially newer councillors, when we started in 2016, all the modelling that was done on what would make this portfolio survive and be sustainable was we needed to convert 25% of the older grandparented tenancies to an IRR. We actually converted over 50%. We're about 54% of the tenancies in council's portfolio IRR. That means that we've got ahead of the game so that we could be sustainable for council. So the introduction of this other rent stream is actually in response to changing policy, but also in response to what we're seeing as a much higher need. And you've heard about it earlier today. We've got people who may be working poor, is not a term I like to use, but people who just do not have enough money to pay a market rent. And so having that affordable rental stream that is less than market, around about 79%, actually allows us to offer housing to a wider group of people in need. There's still a great deal of need out there, and we're having people regularly now that community groups know that we're running a wait list. We are having more and more people coming to us indicating that they are struggling to find housing and they are struggling with cost of living and paying rents. But apart from that, we remain a regulated community housing provider. We work with the regulator who monitors us on an annual basis, but we actually provide her with all new policies, all updated policies, all our processes to have us be the best kind of landlord, called a social landlord class, so that we're doing everything that we can within the law to support our tenants, but also to offer the best possible service to our tenants. Is there anything else in those numbers? Some other numbers you might be interested in. In the last community survey, there was a nice stat that I saw, positive contact with neighbours, people feeling that they were engaging with their neighbours well. 84% of those that answered the survey said that they really did feel that they were having positive engagements with their neighbours and their communities. 65% reported feeling safe in their complex, and again 76% were satisfied with tenancy service. So we don't sit here and go, oh, that's not good, that's good enough. We're always trying to do better, and this year we've actually introduced a different approach to the tenancy survey. We're going out to people, we're going out with iPads, all sorts of things to try and increase the engagement. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
We've got a couple here. Tim first, please, and Tyler.
Thank you. With regards to unaffordable rents, do you know or have looked or tried to find evidence with regards to the effect of Airbnbs on the rental markets? Because there seems to be a huge number of apartments or townhouses, however you want to term them, being used. And I know there's over 450 in the pipeline of 2 bedrooms. Why, with almost a flood in the market, why is it still unaffordable? Do you have any idea?
Really good question, Councillor Scandro. No, we don't look into that.
Yeah.
We do a market survey of what market rents should be by suburb, and we do that annually, and it's an independent survey done by an independent valuer, and they look at all of the rental properties around every sort of complex that we have and give us a comparative what that rent should be.
Okay.
But in terms of knowing the influence of Airbnb on the market, no.
Thank you. I've got another question, but I'll keep positive, so I won't ask that one. With your comments with regards to happy neighbours, when we rebuilt the council housing on Wilson's Road in St Martin's, a number of people were kind of worried about the type of people that would move in there. But to their credit, a couple of older neighbours and the St Martin's Bowls Club came to their support and said they have been historically wonderful neighbours. So it's really good to see that that's a really good attitude. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Tyler, please.
Kia ora koutou. So good to see us. Firstly, I want to start with a really good positive part, is to say how awesome the OCH's call centre is. Extremely helpful and really reliable and efficient. The first question is around the government changes. So do you think there's going to be changes in the IIR scheme that we're looking at in the report?
I wish I had a crystal ball and then I'd be able to help us all out. But I won't be facetious. We just don't know. We know that we have a guarantee that that capped number of IRRs stays in place. And we've actually broken the cap down by portfolio. So we know how many council should have at any one time. And we're working really hard with our team to make sure we stay at that cap. In terms of longer term changes, we just don't know. And I think MHUD, as the ministry responsible, are working through a range of options.
Supply contract numbers.
New supply contracts, as Bruce has just kindly reminded me. So new supply contracts are still available around New Zealand. New supply is for building new homes on land that we own, and we get a contract that gives us the right to manage those homes for 25 years as social homes, receiving a subsidy. So we have 300 of those homes in Christchurch at the moment, and those homes they are all over Christchurch. They're really beautiful homes. Unfortunately for Christchurch, we've done such a good job here at building new homes, even though our colleagues who spoke earlier spoke about the lack of housing. There may be a slowdown in new housing for Christchurch. There's been the latest indication from the government.
Thanks, Kate. And acknowledging the amazing diverse range of portfolios you have across the housing industry, I really appreciate that. The second one is actually with tenancies, and there's been in Riccarton, as you know, there's quite a few OCHT homes and Kaingoora homes, might I add. But the relationship with the police, how does that work with OCHT when there is some issues with antisocial tenants, etc.?
Yes, and I'm sure that is concern to many councillors. We're a landlord, so we work within the legislation available to us, which is the Residential Tenancies Act. If there's ever any criminal activity or anything reported to us, we plead with our tenants to please tell the police and to keep us informed of the reports to the police so that we can take the steps that we can take under the Residential Tenancies Act, but we aren't the police. Our role is to make our communities safe, and when we find that there is behaviours going on that are not safe, we use our rights under the Tenancy Act. We might breach people. Ultimately, we can actually go to the Tenancy Tribunal and end a tenancy. But it takes time. You know, the minimum amount of time to do that is around about 90 days.
Great. Thank you so much. It's really good for public knowledge. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yanni, please.
Thank you, and thank you for coming in. I was just interested in the tenant survey, and you talked about 65% reported feeling safe. Do you know what the trends are for that?
I can come back to you on that, councillor. I think it is a bit bumpy, up and down. We've got the history now of 9 years of history.
Right. Yeah.
I know it went up. I'm just not quite sure to convincingly say.
No, that would be cool. And then the other thing was just regards to the demographic. Again, like, it's good to get the current snapshot, but do we know over time what the trends have been around that as well?
I think in 2013, Council changed its approach to housing people, where it had previously been for people who are older persons. Council adopted the model that was then being used by Housing New Zealand, which was housing people most in need. So it's kind of changed the demographic. We've probably got more people now in the 25 to 55 age group than there would have been then.
Right. Okay. And then I wasn't sure, do you want questions on the housing report as well, or just on OCHT stuff?
Oh, the whole thing? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess, and I don't know who's best to answer this question, but I look at our housing strategy. We don't have any targets, so we've got joint actions that we're working on, but we don't have any targets, and some of the work feels like it's very slow given the situation that we're hearing about. That's
not quite what the report is about, but I understand where you're coming from.
Sorry,
but we can give the answer that we have given many times before. Councillor, we are constrained by finances, and we don't put targets in deliberately because we can't, without finances, we can't achieve things. If we work essentially with Kate and our other partners on the smell of an oily rag to try and deliver things, we're not going to overpromise and underdeliver because we can't fund things.
Otherwise, you'll create something that you'll regret, a target you'll regret and finish. So,
But
thank you.
if we wanted to understand like what more we could do in the space around like the affordable rentals, which I think is great that you're looking at that now. You know, is there a way that we can, like, how do we set the encouragement or the, you know, like, how do we know what level we want to get to? A bit like to Tim's point, like if you read the social impact in the Greater Christchurch Partnership Plan, it makes it really clear that zoning capacity, e.g. lots of townhouses and apartments, doesn't address the significant housing need at the lower end of the spectrum. And that's the area that I'm hearing that there's huge issues with in terms of demand. So I guess I'm really keen to kind of understand, like, if we wanted to do more in that space, then how do we do that if we don't have the targets? Like, how do we prioritise
We haven't got
getting
the
work
money,
done on that?
haven't got the spondoolies.
Well, inclusionary zoning is something that we've, you know, raised since 2007. So I don't think it's a lack of money. We just actually haven't done the work and got to a point where we've made decisions.
So Councillor, we've had discussions on inclusionary zoning, and you do not have a consensus around the table. This really needs to be put back into the councillors and the governance to come up and give the guidance to staff on what you can agree on and what direction you want from us, and we can provide that advice. But at this point in time, you don't have a consensus, you don't have that direction for us, and you can keep asking us to do stuff, but we can bring it forward and then it just dies. Right. So you do the work as governors and give us the guidance, and we will get on with it and deliver.
Is there any,
Thank you. We've got to move on, but please.
Just wanted to know, is there anything that you think that we could be doing that we're not currently doing to address the issue of we have an oversupply of housing at the same time we're facing some of the most severe housing challenges for
We'd probably have to come back with advice.
Well,
That's putting them on the spot.
That's right. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Now, I'm happy to move this and, sorry, but Sarah's got a question as well.
Oh, has she? I just following from Yanni that Bruce, could you?
No, sorry, Sarah was before you, but I'm happy to move.
Well, it was connected with that.
No. So I mean, mine follows on, and I mean, the inclusionary zoning thing is difficult because it needs our neighbours to pitch in, right? It's not just us. But when it comes to the actual community housing provision, and while central government funding and housing has slowed pretty much to a halt in Otatahi, and we have a rates neutral policy that was decided on a very long time ago, if we were open as a council to stepping outside of policy for some extra provision of, for example, the high need, you know, the single bedroom kind of places, how would we go about that process and getting some information to be able to inform a decision? So, for example, if we decided that $5 million of capital was well spent in that kind of space, or you said we could do 10 homes for that, or whatever, how would that process work?
Yeah. So first of all, just in terms of the policy, you reapproved it in last June through the LTP. So
we didn't kind of have a discussion around that particular part of it, but yes.
So if I was in your shoes, I would be asking the chief executive for advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can, in this report, maybe we could do something where we ask for advice on the potential for council to enable the extra provision of community housing, or something, just something along those lines, just some advice. It's not a report. That kind of thing.
Is that an amendment to the
A potential addition if people are open to that. Just a little bit of advice on what that could look like, so we can make that choice. Yeah.
you two would, you've moved.
Did you second it in the end? Because I moved it. I'm happy to put that in. Pauline seconded it, by the way, Sam. and we're happy to put
Yeah,
that in.
that's great.
Could that also include if it's going to be an effect on rates?
Oh, yeah, no, we'd include all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Materialise.
It'll be it'll be just some advice to see a way forward. That's all we want. Okay. Thank
And
you.
then, so
Thank
then
you.
my question was similar. It was following on from Yanni, and whether Bruce could suggest some wording that we could put in to begin a process on the inclusionary zoning work. To give you direction on that. So can you think of some wording we could put in that's quite just asking for advice around that?
So I think there's advice coming back, and I'm just looking across at John, through the Greater Christchurch partnership work. I believe that it will come back to council.
But sorry, as you said, Bruce, if all three of the Greater Christchurch Partnership people don't agree, inclusionary zoning won't happen.
Yeah, so we can provide the feedback that's occurred, and I think that the partnership may have already received that, but the broader councillors may not, from the other two councils. So we can certainly provide that through.
Okay.
So could we?
Include.
We,
no,
we,
that's
we,
GCP.
we don't need to put it in a resolution. We can just do that automatically.
Yes, but we don't want to lose sight of it. So it would be good to have something in here saying waiting for the feedback on the Greater Pastorship decision around inclusionary zoning. Otherwise, we will forget, it'll get lost. And then if that comes back as a negative, we can follow our own process around that.
We can't. You know more about this than me, Bruce. If all three don't agree to inclusionary zoning, it doesn't happen. Am I on that right track?
Well,
The advice that we've given you is that if all three don't do it, it's probably going to be extremely difficult for one unilaterally to do it because it would encourage a shift of development into the other areas.
And you will bring that
that will happen.
advice back to us when that comes through GCP, so we don't need to put it in here.
And if we just take that, I'll talk to John offline and we can put that through. Councillor, we won't forget your point, so I don't think we need a resolution on it.
Okay, good as gold.
So where would we expect to see that feedback come through?
I think you'd have something by the end of today,
No, but
even
where?
initially.
Just as a memo? you
Yeah.
mean? Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, I want to get on with this. Yanni, please. Now, we're still doing questions at the moment. And then after you finish, we'll go into discussion or
So
debate.
just on page 221, so our objectives is to support the provision of a range of models for more immediate access to emergency and transitional housing. And I thought at a previous meeting, we've got number 2 up there, and I think we've also raised it. But I'm just wondering, do we know what the resource required? Like, it's not started, so are we able to get like a quantum of resource required to do that work?
Which work?
to do which
This is the
We'll-
objective.
We'll take that on
on
notice
page
and we'll come back to you,
2.1.
councillor.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
thought last time we were told that this wasn't within our work program,
Yeah.
and so I'm just
Yeah.
rather than getting more
As I
advice.
said, councillor, we'll take it on notice and we'll come back to you.
Righto, so we'll do that. Okay, so we've got a mover and seconder. Now, is there any discussion on this? Thank you, everybody, coming in. Any discussion? No, and you see there's an extra one in there, item number 2, and Pauline and I are happy with that. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you, that's carried. Right, now, we change round for number 7.